Fill your cart at WagerTalk and Sports Memo and save 30% using coupon code SAVE30. Valid 3 days only, Wednesday, September 22nd through Friday, September 24th. Save over $10 on a 5% play. Save over $35 on a 7-day all-access package. Save over $600 on a full year of all-access and get in on every sport. Or load your cart with all of the above and save over $645. Remember, you can only use one coupon at WagerTalk and one coupon at Sports Memo per customer between now and Friday at midnight. So make sure to load your cart full and maximize your 30% savings.
All right, welcome in. It is the Friday edition of College Football Daily, powered by WagerTalk.com, and we got some great games here to discuss heading into the weekend, including Arkansas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech. We're going to look a little South Carolina, Kentucky, and we're going to finish up, guys, with Georgia Tech taking on UNC. And the three gentlemen we are going to break these games down with, you see them, guys, three of the absolute best. Tony Mejia here, Rob Veno joining us, and, of course, Dave Cokin here on this Friday, September the 24th. And Mr. Mejia, how was your evening last night, my friend? And what do you got locked and loaded heading into the weekend?
It was a pretty good evening. Football-wise, split my I had a 4% play on Carolina and then lost my Christian McCaffrey prop on receptions when he injured his hamstring. My fantasy team is also upset. Called a press conference to elevate Chuba Hubbard. So hopefully we'll be all right for the next few weeks. And hit my college football side in total. So that was good in Middleton and Marshall and Appalachian State, which is a very entertaining game. Got a 5% play tonight, some other Friday goodies. And tomorrow and Sunday, obviously big days in college and pro.
That's it. Got to head over to WagerTalk.com, visit Tony's page, as well as Mr. Veno, Rob Veno in the house. Rob, how's your week been? How'd you do last night? And what do you got heading into the weekend here at WagerTalk?
Yeah, week overall, the NFL was great, Joe. On an 8-2 NFL run, so we're happy with that. Last night's baseball, I can share a little bit in Tony's pain because I was on the Atlanta Braves yesterday, and when Charlie Morton exited, all looked well, but then the bullpen came in and nothing looked well after that. So that was a tough one there for baseball. I may resort to waiting for the playoffs to pick up baseball again. But college football is up and available for tonight. 2 4% best bets on tonight's card up now at WagerTalk.com. So we'll look to start the college football week off in good fashion.
All right, good stuff. And Dave Cokin, and if you guys happen to miss yesterday's show, I'll remind you real quick, Dave's got 3 best bets up and available right now, WagerTalk.com. He loves the card this weekend. And those 3 best bets, guys, $29 right now. All you have to do is head over to WagerTalk.com, head over to Dave's page, and grab those 3. He loves it. It's going to be a fun card this weekend, Dave. And what else you got going on at WagerTalk this weekend?
Well, it's a vasectomy Friday. I'm shooting blanks tonight. I got nothing on the Friday card. I took baseball off, and I did not like any of the 4 football games. So I'll just be watching tonight. But the 3 best bets go tomorrow. Another game which we're going to get huge closing line value on. I sent that out. That was the first play I sent out this week because I knew they had a terrible number in the game. And so if nothing else, we're getting like 4 points, the best of it. And there's a free play up. Also, I have some leans that did not go out as selections. But if you want to find out what those are and why they didn't make the card, just follow me on Twitter at Dave Cokin. And it's like 2 tweets down on my timeline. There's a series of tweets about, I think, 6 or 7 games that I like to some extent, but I don't play a whole lot of games. I'm happy with the 5 I've got, plus 2 in the NFL for Sunday. Possibly might add 1 more in the NFL. We'll have to wait and see on that, but I'm looking forward to it. I don't have plays on any of the 4 games we're going to talk about, but I've got opinions, and I'll share those.
Knowledge is power, guys. That's what it's all about. Why we're doing what we're doing here. Don't forget, visit all 3 of these guys on their Twitter handles as well. Always a great time. Always great information coming your way. We are going to start, of course, with the first game on the board for us here today. Let's take a look. Texas A&M going up against Arkansas. AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Boy, I can't wait to see what side of the fan bases show up here. It should be a hell of a game. 6.5 is an open, 47.5 as a total. This is going to be 3:30 on Saturday Eastern time. And Tony Mejia, coming to you first, my friend. Talk to me about this neutral site game between A&M and Arkansas.
Yeah, it's neutral, I guess, but Jerry Jones is trying to grease the refs at some point for his alma mater. Now, this is the only time we get to see him sweat and drink his whiskey watching anybody other than the Cowboys. So I'm sure he'll be an interested party. He definitely hasn't been happy this decade. Texas A&M has won 9 straight in the series, but 5 of the last 7 meetings have been decided by 7 points or less. Jimbo Fisher is 0-3 against the number against the Hogs, and last season's game was a classic backdoor cover situation. Sam Pittman's Razorbacks got 14 fourth-quarter points with the game already decided to cover, and I think they'll be far more competitive in this one. I think they could cover this game straight up. I don't see them winning, but the issue with A&M is that Zach Calzada will be the quarterback again for the foreseeable future. Just really don't believe in him. He's more of a game manager and a runner. Struggled at Colorado once he came in for Haynes King, who's out for the season with the torn fibula. So, Texas A&M took a big hit. I don't think anybody else on the roster is capable of replacing Calzada at this point. And KJ Jefferson for Arkansas has been a revelation so far. We'll see if he can continue the consistency. But 366 yards and 3 touchdowns against Georgia Southern last week. The knock on him was that he couldn't throw. He's been throwing the deep ball pretty well. Hogs are averaging 42.8 points per game over his 4 career starts. Again, they'll face a much tougher challenge and really sound Texas A&M defense that's now the strength of that team. But they do have playmakers if Calzada can get them the ball. Weidermeyer had a big day last year against the Hogs, so he'll be a weapon at tight end once again. But yeah, I mean, not a game I'll probably end up touching, but would not surprise me if Arkansas hangs around once again and loses late.
All right, good stuff. And Rob, he's got a point there. This Texas A&M defense, 366 and what, 3 touchdowns is nice. Going to be hard to do against this Texas A&M defense, only giving up, 240 yards a game. What do you think we're going to see here?
Yeah, but we have somewhat of a bit of a guide here, Joe. If we go back to the Arkansas-Texas game, not to say that Texas by any stretch is the Texas A&M defense, but it's still a Power 5 school that's projected to do big things here. And in that game, Arkansas racked up 471 total yards. Big total yard advantage in that game for the Arkansas Razorbacks. All the stuff that A&M does well, you could almost argue that Arkansas does equally as well. A&M is supposed to be a big offensive line school. Now, granted, they replaced a lot of pieces on that offensive line this year with a running game and tight end passing game. Arkansas does all of that well. Sam Pittman, remember, is an offensive line coach by trade coming from Georgia. He's put together a real nice offensive line here right now, averaging 6.1 per carry. And I don't think that Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator, is mentioned enough in the progress of this Arkansas offense. It's interesting to see that Kendall Briles, while we know him running his dad's style of offense, but that was, more power spread, air raid type, and the play calling for this team through 3 games is 68% run, 32% pass. The Hogs are doing it with their linemen and their running backs. As Tony mentioned, KJ Jefferson, a lot to do with that running ability. On a lot of fronts here, Joe, I think they're equal to A&M. The only front I would give A&M an advantage on is the defensive side of the football. But again, the freshman quarterback didn't perform well in Colorado. I don't know that he'll perform real well here. I think A&M is likely to be more conservative play calling wise, knowing Jimbo Fisher's tendencies, than will be Kendall Briles. So I'm going to look for Arkansas. They've got some playmakers. Tony mentioned the other side is playmakers, but Burke's a big time wide receiver here too for Arkansas. So I think Arkansas plus points is the right side.
Dave, it should be a very entertaining game. I don't know how much offense we're going to get from these 2 teams here, but it certainly looks like it's going to be very competitive. How do you see it playing out?
I actually don't think it's going to be a particularly entertaining game. I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest. Arkansas has played good defense so far, and I would expect that to continue here because I don't think they are going to fear Calzada at all. Look, he wasn't good against New Mexico last week. I know A&M won the game 34-0, but that was in New Mexico. And the fact is, he looked very tentative in the pocket. The decision-making just wasn't there. And he's facing a much better defense this weekend in Arkansas. The flip side of it is, Jefferson's put up some pretty good numbers so far, I think to the surprise of many, as that was considered to be kind of a weak spot in the Arkansas lineup. But he hasn't faced anybody. And he's stepping up here against what is an elite defense. A&M's defense has been really good so far. It's a legit top 10 defense. So I don't think Jefferson's going to be able to succeed with much here. Arkansas is going to be run heavy. They're going to try and be insistent about establishing a ground game. Whether they can do it or not, I don't know. I think A&M, listen, unless Jimbo comes with a playbook that I'm not expecting here, they're going to also be run heavy. They've got Spiller, who's a good back. Aeneas Smith is probably the best weapon on the team. He got hurt last week, but I think he's okay to go. I think they just removed him for precautionary measures. Watch out for him on special teams, by the way. The guy's a dynamite punt returner. I can't lay the points, and I don't really want to take the points. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I mean, look, the total, whenever a total's under 50 in college football, it's like, because you can get points in a hurry in college football, but I think this is a 23-17 type of game. I think A&M wins. Not convinced they cover. I would look at the under in this game.
Oh, okay. All right. And that's going to be at Jerry World there. You know he's going to be wearing his Arkansas T-shirt underneath that suit jacket. You know it's going to be happening there, guys. 3:30 Eastern Saturday for Arkansas taking on Texas A&M. We're going to move on to, well, we're going to stay in the Lone Star State there. How about Texas Tech, and Rob Veno? No love lost between these two teams. In fact, I believe 5 of the last 6 that these two teams have played have been decided by 8 points or less. I'm looking at a minus 11 here for Texas with a total of 60.5 as an open. What do you think we're going to see?
Yeah, you've seen some crazy line movement in this game, Joe, from 11 down to 7.5. And then yesterday afternoon, not even a gradual move back to 9, but one lump sum move from 7.5 right to 9.5. Boom. So somebody, I don't know if they're trying to catch a middle at 10, grab the 11, and then lay the lower number, and then game falls 10. But there was a pretty good array of line movement in this game. Listen, I'm on over here in this contest for a couple of reasons. You sit back and you wait for the Texas Tech offense, which now features Oregon starting quarterback from last year, Tyler Shook, as their starter. And you know, off-season, Matt Wells parted ways with his offensive coordinator, David Yost. They put some really big numbers up at Utah State, but it wasn't working here at Texas Tech. So he brings in Sonny Cumbie to run this air raid offense. And I was just waiting for an opportunity to see them bust out. And I know the competition was FIU last week, but it's the way Texas Tech busted out that just shows me that, in my estimation, from here on out, Texas Tech will remind us of the Texas Tech offense that we know from about 2-3 years ago. Last week, they go for 584 total yards. I think the biggest difference between this Texas Tech team and the ones that we've seen in recent history is the fact that they run the football. I mean, I don't even want to mention my age, but as long as I've been watching football, Texas Tech has not been able to run. And now Taj Brooks and Xavier White, a couple of kids who average 8.1 and 7.1 per carry. If you're going to give Texas Tech in this offense the running game with the passing game, that's troublesome. Average 7.9 yards per play last week. I think they can do damage to this Texas defense because, as I mentioned earlier, this Texas defense has only been pressed once by real competition. That was Arkansas. And against Arkansas, they gave up 471 yards. So, to me, I'm not sold on Texas defense. I think Tech makes their way with points here. The same thing, I could be real repetitive here on the Texas side. Steve Sarkisian, head coach, widely recognized, one of the top 5 play callers in college football. It took a couple of games, but last week, 56 points in 62 plays, 620 yards. Again, it's Rice. I get it, but it's the way that they did it. 4 TDs in a minute 23 or less, 6 TDs in less than 2:56. explosiveness is what you want when you're playing these games up and over the total. Bijan Robinson, 62-yard TD run last week. His cohort in the backfield, Johnson, 72-yard touchdown run. That matches up real well here, guys, because in my mind, Texas Tech is totally untested versus the run. Played FIU, can't really run. Played Stephen F. Austin, an FCS team that doesn't really run. And they played the Houston Cougars, whose two other games are Grambling and Rice. And against Grambling and Rice, they could only average 3.9. I think the matchups fit real well here for points. Historically, it's a high-scoring series. I'm going to take over the total here in this game.
All right, looking at over in that game. And, Dave, I got a friend of mine who swore that Texas Tech was going to win more than 4.5 games this year, which is what they opened with. And they're 3 in the bag already. So are you surprised with what you've seen from the Red Raiders so far this year?
Not really. I haven't played anybody. FIU is terrible. I think Butch Davis needs to retire as quickly as possible. It's not working out very well. And this is more of a test here for Texas Tech. The Longhorns, I lost with them a couple of weeks ago. I took them against Arkansas, and obviously was never in the game. But I still think that game was more of an aberration than anything else. I'm very high on Sarkisian. I think he's going to do a great job with this team. I like the way they bounced back last week, even though, it was against Rice. Okay. But it's still, they went out there with bad intentions and absolutely crushed the team. So they weren't hanging their heads coming out of a really bad performance against the Razorbacks. It's based on, I'm still kind of basing Texas Tech on preseason because this is, to me, I know they're 3-0, but this is their first real game. And I'm not convinced they're that good. I don't think they're a horrible team by any means, but I still think Texas is the superior entry here. I think they've got better athletes, and I think they will solve the Texas Tech defense, which I don't think is quite as good as it's shown so far. I was surprised the line started to go down, and then yesterday, as Rob already mentioned, there was a big move. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. This was at a respected house offshore. And it went from 7.5 to 9.5 in one move. Usually you'd see little half-point increments. If it's a stronger wager, you might see a 1-point jump. 2 points. Boom, like that. And of course, and that's I think that's where the bet came in, to be honest with you, because the other books, they move on air these days, which is not well, I'm not criticizing them, because if you leave a number out there that's stale, you're going to get killed. So, I mean, that's not a knock on the books that are moving on air. I would do the same thing if I were an odds maker in one of those places. If I see something happen at store X and I'm store Y, I'm catching up with that move right away, even if no bets have come in. So I'll assume it was a pretty powerful wager on Texas. I agree with it. I'm not playing the game because there is a lot of unknown on Texas Tech, and I hate guessing at this point. I prefer to have some substance. But I think Texas does match up pretty well with them. I made the game 12, so the Longhorns would be the side I like here.
Tony, it's Dave's right. I mean, Texas 53-17 all time. They've always been just a cut above Texas Tech here. 10 of the last 12 they've handled. What do you think happens here tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big brother, little brother situation within that state. But, I mean, this is the year for Matt Wells to put it all together. I was impressed by that Houston game only because they fell behind really early and they showed some resiliency, and the defense did a nice job forcing turnovers against Clayton Tune to turn that game around in the second half. I believe there was a pick six that allowed that game to be higher scoring than it was expected, because it really was a defensive battle. And I think in this matchup, you look towards a Texas Tech team that should be able to hang, because at this point, I don't know what to make of Casey Thompson. He's led scoring drives. This is impressive. In 16 out of his 18 drives since the Alamo Bowl last year. So, I mean, clearly he's getting results, but Hudson Card beat him out for a reason. He did not look good at Arkansas, and Sarkisian pulled him immediately, and now Thompson's the guy. Card will play some. But again, you're less than a month removed from your debut, and you're already pulling your freshman that you elevated as a first string. So I don't like that about the Longhorns. I've lost fading them once with Louisiana and backing them against Arkansas. So I don't have a great handle on them, but I think Texas Tech can play with them. Again, this is a situation where Wells can finally break through with a winning season. This is his 5th year in Lubbock. They've lost more than they've won for 5 straight seasons. So this is a big springboard game. Again, the FIU thing, I agree with the guys. It doesn't mean much that they hung 54 on the Golden Panthers. Really disappointing in FIU. Max Bortenschlager looks terrible. Butch Davis would do well to replace him there to keep his sanity. But yeah, the Houston win did impress me, and I think they can go into Austin and hang within 10 points. The key is going to be Tyler Shook and getting him completions early to get into a rhythm. But Eric Izukama is a legit number 1 wide receiver in the Big 12, so they should have some success. Moving the ball through the air through him. I would lean towards the over like Rob, and I'm going to take points. And as we'll find out at the end of the show, this is the game I like the most out of a card that I don't really love out of this foursome.
All right, good stuff there. Well, we're going to head over to the SEC. We're going to take a look here at South Carolina and Kentucky. Opened up 4.5 for Kentucky on the road. 49 is a total, and Dave, South Carolina coming off of that drubbing there, that 40-13 loss at Georgia. What do you think? Do they bounce back here? What do you think we're going to see at home?
Well, getting killed by Georgia is no disgrace. They're completely overmatched against Georgia. I like what Beamer's doing so far at South Carolina overall. They showed some character and a nice comeback win. I know East Carolina is not a very good football team, to be sure. But they were still down 14-0, and everything was going wrong in that game. Turnovers, penalties. I mean, they were just killing themselves. And they came back, tied it up, and then put together a good drive at the end, worked the clock right, kicked a short field goal, and got out with a win. And then, last week wasn't very good. Kentucky also wasn't very good last week. They barely got by Chattanooga, an FCS team. Kentucky still looks like they're having some growing pains with the offensive philosophy change they've made this year. I think it was a good idea, but it hasn't really paid real dividends yet. I think this is a tough game. I'm not really sold on either team at this point. I made Kentucky, what did I make him? I made him -4. So it's pretty much in that range. I think it's gone up a little bit. What is it? 6 now, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'd lean to the Gamecocks at home, but I really don't have a lot to say on this game. So rather than just idle chatter, I have more to say on the next game, which I do kind of like. So I'll let Rob and Tony tear this one apart. I'll lean to South Carolina, but not with any chance of playing it.
All right. Well, Tony, I'll come back to you. The South Carolina team, home dog possibly. What do you think we're going to see here?
Well, we'll see Luke Doty. That was originally supposed to be their starter before he hurt his foot in practice and really threw everything into upheaval for the Gamecocks. They had Zeb Noland, who they originally hired to be a coach, end up using his final year of eligibility. He started his career at Iowa State and was, I believe, at North Dakota State, and really did a nice job considering he was pressed into duty. But the offense has really been stagnant for the better part of the last few games, and obviously facing Georgia, kind of ties your hands there. But they were also not very good against East Carolina and survived that. What is it? They're 13th in the SEC in passing offense, points per game, and total offense. So maybe Doty will give them a lift there. He's certainly expected to, and is a more talented passer. So we'll see how he fares here. He can also run the ball. So that's a variable that will determine, I think, how competitive South Carolina is in this game. And then we got Kentucky on the other hand. Dave mentioned the change in philosophy. Last year it was Terry Wilson and more of a run-centric offense where the quarterback really didn't pass and certainly didn't pass accurately, but was able to buy time with his feet and for playmakers and for himself, with the speed. He's now at New Mexico. And Will Levis is the quarterback for the Wildcats. Came over for Penn State. Already has thrown for over 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. The key is going to be avoiding turnovers here. South Carolina's got 7 interceptions already on the season. Jalen Foster's got 3 of them, and he's an All-American. So turnovers will decide this one. It's Kentucky's first road game. They should win the game. I think they're the more talented team from top to bottom. But again, first roadie. The fact that they forced only 2 turnovers and committed, I believe, 8. That's against the grain for what they've done under Stoops over the last couple of years. So neither of these teams have really, convinced me that they have their stuff together just yet. So this is a pass for me.
What do you think, Rob? What do you think we're going to get here? The total's been interesting so far, 48.5. It's up at a couple of places there, but kind of maintaining right around that 49 number. What do you think we're going to see?
Yeah, I'm really not interested in playing side or total, Joe. But if I had to, I would probably look toward that over. And that would be an assumption at best of things that would happen here. Tony made a couple of good points. First of all, Kentucky's first road game. They haven't been out of the state of Kentucky all season long. So we'll see when they get to South Carolina, which is a team that's going to play a game, SEC East, which is a huge step down in class as far as the defense that they're going to face after facing Georgia. Like Dave said, getting your brains beaten by Georgia. There's no crime in that. I go back to the Kentucky, and let's go back to the philosophy change that Dave talked about. They bring in Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator here at Kentucky. LA Rams quarterback assistant coach, bringing that Rams passing offense in to try and infuse some type of passing offense into this team. And they, get Will Levis from Penn State out of the transfer portal. And the numbers have been pretty good, although the competition, aside from Missouri, hasn't been good. So it's hard to put a lot of stock in any of these numbers after 3 games because for each of these teams, 2 of their 3 have been opponents that they should have beaten. I think what comes into play here is we're going to find out if the South Carolina run defense is any good whatsoever. When you go on the road and face a hostile crowd, the best way to take them out of it is to be able to run and punish a team. And Kentucky did that to Missouri. Kentucky ran for 340. Levis is a part of that. He's a beast to try and tackle. He had some games some moments at Penn State where running the football, he showed his ability. And his passing numbers, again, have been a lot better than what Kentucky has had the last couple of years. So it would seem like Kentucky is the better or more talented or farther ahead of schedule than of these 2 teams. But I'm just not convinced that on the road they're good enough to go and cover a number. I said points in the beginning, Joe. If I had to play, I would play over based on that fact. I think Kentucky might be able to run the football here, balance it out, and score some points. I think Luke Doty and company will show Kentucky some stuff that they haven't seen as far as the passing game is concerned. Mizzou did a pretty good job, and Mizzou came all the way back in that game against Kentucky, tied it up at 28 when they were down big. So Kentucky's defense is not shut down by any means. I think maybe if I had to look, I'd look over, but it's not a game that made the card, and it's not a game that I probably will even personally bet.
All right, good. Well, listen, we've got a couple of other games here between Arkansas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, South Carolina, Kentucky. Maybe one of the more interesting ones that you may like is this next game with Georgia Tech, UNC. And Dave, you mentioned it. It's an interesting matchup from the standpoint of North Carolina's offense nearly doubled the amount of points that Georgia Tech's been able to score in a couple of FBS games, and 59 in back-to-back games. How close is this game going to be?
Well, it might be entertaining and competitive because the North Carolina offense is certainly back to where we expected it to be. I think you can give them a pass for the Virginia Tech game. They were breaking in a lot of new people, and the rhythm just wasn't there. And Virginia Tech happens to be a good defensive team, and it was on the road, tough atmosphere. And Howell struggled, and so did the rest of the team. Since then, they have become, once again, the North Carolina Tar Heels we expected to see. And that is an offense that can do whatever it wants against almost anybody. This is a really good offense. The receivers are now stepping up. They can run the ball. Howell is a stud. The offensive line is strong. I don't know if there's anybody that's going to shut this team down. But the flip side of it is the defense also appears to be back to where it was last year, which is, it's not garbage, but it's not real good. Okay? I mean, it's probably like a top 50 defense, but that's because you're factoring in 130 teams, and they just get better athletes than some of the smaller schools. But at the bigger college level, in the Power 5 breakdown, their defense would be on the low end. So Georgia Tech, even though they haven't shown a lot of offense so far, Yates is proving to be I didn't think he was going to be the first stringer there. I thought Yates would be the second string quarterback prior to the season, but he won the job, and he's been okay. And Georgia Tech, I think people are looking at this and say, well, look, they held Clemson. Looks like anybody can hold Clemson right now. Clemson's offense isn't very good. They're not going to hold North Carolina, but I think Georgia Tech's going to put points up of their own here because North Carolina just doesn't defend very well. Some of the bodies have changed from last year, but the tendencies haven't. It's a defense that can be scored upon and can give up big plays. I think there's going to be an over. To me, any North Carolina game where it's less than 70, probably got a good chance that it's going over. And that's the way I like this game. I think UNC probably wins by somewhere right around the line. I made, what did I make them? I made them 13.5, so it's pretty close to where the number is. But I think what you get here is a ton of points. This could be like a 41-31 type of game. A lot of fun to watch. Over would be my call in this game.
All right, good stuff there. And Tony, North Carolina lost on the road. Virginia Tech to open the season. They lost 2 of their last 4 road games last season here. You trust them? How much do you trust them on the road here?
I mean, I think they're going to have their challenges at Notre Dame later in the season, and they close at NC State, and so certainly those are more imposing road environments than, I won't call this a neutral site because it's in downtown Atlanta, but it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and not Bobby Dodd. So right. It's not Georgia Tech's true home field. I just, all that I'm measuring here is, and this is why I'm staying away from the game, is how much does Georgia Tech have left after that Clemson loss? Because it was tough physically. There was a delay. So from the standpoint of being mentally locked in, that was impressive. I read that Jeff Collins, the Tech head coach, said he had the highest effort score from his team that he's ever had there. And it was a game against a physical Clemson defense. I think Jordan Yates looked really good. Dave mentioned it. Jeff Sims started all 10 games last year. He was supposed to be the starter up until last week. I mean, he was rumored to potentially start that game against Clemson. They were real coy about it, and then it's been Yates, and I think it'll continue to be Yates until he loses a job, and he hasn't really done anything to do that, even though they only scored 8 points. He's smart with the football. So that could keep him in this game against North Carolina. I think the spread's about right. And again, I think the Heels will score points. How much does Georgia Tech have left after last week to stay in this game in the fourth quarter and match them and be within 2 touchdowns? So slight lean to North Carolina because it's not a true home field advantage for Tech, but probably a game I'm going to stay away from as well.
It's an interesting question, Rob, because Coach Collins, Georgia Tech, was quoted as saying that team that played at Clemson, well, that team can play with anybody. How sure are you that team shows up here to take on North Carolina, Rob?
Yeah, I think there's some differences here, Joe. And, all these games every week, at least when I look at them, they're individual matchups. Sometimes you got to throw stuff away, or sometimes you have to apply what happened last week into this week. I'll say this. The North Carolina defense did look miserable last week, but I won't throw it all on that defense. You have to begin to give a lot of credit to this Virginia offense under Robert Anae, the offensive coordinator who came with Bronco Mendenhall to Virginia and who has coached spread offenses under some of the best in the business. And he's always been known as a high-powered offensive coordinator. It looks like it's kicking in this year. Brennan Armstrong at quarterback To compare him to Yates at this point in time isn't even close. Yates might be, could be, may be. Brennan Armstrong right now is. And we'll see him again tonight, right? They'll be on against Wake Forest. But I think that the 574 they put up last week could be partially attributed to UNC's defense, partially attributed to Virginia's offense. Prior to that, UNC hadn't shown any give in their defense. 296 total yardage to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech won the game, but they did 0 offensively. And Georgia State, the head coach of Georgia State came out and said, we would have loved to run the ball against North Carolina, except when you're down 21-0, how the hell are you going to run the ball anymore? You couldn't run the ball. That could be the case here. Virginia, for all the yardage they put up last week, none of it was done on the ground. 22 carries, 21 yards. Even if you take the sack yardage out and you want to go true rushing yardage, they're 19 of 36 on the ground. Can Georgia Tech really throw the ball well enough to compete in this game if they get down? I'm not sure. I agree with Dave that if you're going to look total, you have to look over, and that's mostly based on the fact that I think North Carolina is getting the 49 here. The class difference offensively between they and Clemson right now is outrageous. And in that instance, if you get that, you only need 17 out of Georgia Tech. It would put you in a position where North Carolina and over correlate to one another. I think they probably do. Couldn't argue anybody off either of those. I would probably lean more towards the over, though, because Carolina tends to score so quickly that it does leave the defense out on the field a lot. And Georgia Tech, with the fight that Tony and Dave both described, could come, fourth quarter points could come for Georgia Tech, even if they're down big. So I'd probably look over first, and I'd look to UNC minus the points as well.
All right, good stuff there. And 4 games, guys. Arkansas, A&M. We talked Texas Tech, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Georgia Tech, UNC. So when you put it all together, let's take a quick listen here as to who these gentlemen might like a little bit more than the others. And Tony Mejia, I'll come to you. You weren't crazy about the card, but talk to us. What's the one game here that you have circled you like a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, I mean, I like Texas Tech, and I like the total in here, but I think one of these gentlemen has also carved out an opinion on that, so I'll just leave that to them. I will say that the over is 5-1 over the last 6 meetings between the teams, and we've got a situation where Matt Wells a little bit on the hot seat. Big 12 opener. This was a game that went to overtime last season, 63-56. Texas won. Sam Ehlinger now in the NFL, and Alan Bowman, who started for Texas Tech, now at Michigan, backing up. I think he's a third stringer now. But both threw 5 touchdown passes last season. So I don't think Texas Tech fears Texas. I do like Tyler Shuck over Casey Thompson, and I think the Red Raiders are a live dog. So I'm going to take the points. And again, this is a situation where if Texas Tech can pull off this upset, they can finally break through, eclipse that win total you talked about earlier, and have their first winning season under Wells, who I do think has done a decent job since coming over for Utah State.
Yep, should be a fun game there. All right, Rob, Veno, of the 4 here, is there one you're leaning towards a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, Tony Mejia was referring to me as the person who thinks that this game's going to get over the total, so I'm going to go that route. If you try and score this thing out, guys, where the line opened at -11, and even if I use Dave's personal power rating number of 12, it puts you somewhere in the vicinity of 38-27. Is that so hard to see in this game? In my mind, it's not. I think we've got explosiveness on both sides of the football now. I talked about the ability of Texas Tech to run, and the fact that you can't be sold, at least I'm not sold on the Texas defense, which got carved up for almost 500 against Arkansas. The explosiveness, the quickness that they score. And I'm going to take a proactive approach here. It hasn't been proven statistically thoroughly yet, but I'm going to say both offenses are by far the best units on the field, and Texas Tech's defensive numbers are kind of phony. Texas is going to bring a ground game to this field that Texas Tech hasn't seen yet, and I think Texas runs wild, which opens up the pass, and Sarkisian's play calling should be right on here. I'm sure he'll find a groove. I think over this number of 62 was a little bit short. I was expecting higher, didn't get it, so I'll play it over 62.
All right, going over 62 in that one. And quick reminder, guys, Dave's Best bets, 3 games that he likes up tomorrow. Right now, $29 if you visit WagerTalk.com. And Dave, which one of these 4 games did you lean towards a little bit more than the others?
I think it'd have to be the over in the Georgia Tech North Carolina game. Look, the Tar Heels offense is that good. I think they'll get to 40 here. And I think Georgia Tech's going to get their share of points as well. All they need to do really is get to the mid-20s. And I believe they can do that against the Tar Heel defense that can be beaten with bigger plays, or with big plays, I should say. So I think it's a game that gets to 70, and that would put it over the total. So G-Tech and UNC over for my best bet here on the show.
All right. Love it. There you go, guys. Don't forget, we got games tonight, too, as well. And Rob, Veno, and Tony Mejia locked and loaded for the weekend. All you have to do is head over to WagerTalk.com, visit their pages, best bets up and ready to go. 3-day, 7-day, even 30-day all-access packages also available here. Don't forget Dave's 3 best bets, $29 at his page now at WagerTalk. So it's been a hell of a week, and it is time to do a quick recap here. If you're just joining us, didn't get a chance to join us all weekend long, here's what you need to know. Tuesday, there to go, Tony Mejia. And I think that's good, too, because, Tony, you came on the show on Tuesday, which is another important reason, guys, as to why it pays certainly to watch these shows on the days they air, because that's at 70 now there, Tony, even maybe even a little higher some places. So at 68.5, you'd have gotten a great number if you joined us on Tuesday. And you see, of course, Wednesday with Rob, Drew, and Ralph. Yesterday with Tony Mejia and Teddy joining us there. Said if you like watching paint dry, Rutgers, Michigan might be for you. Dave Cokin kills him the back leech, but he did that yesterday. And, of course, today there are the games. And when you put it all together here, guys, if you want to live large here, and throw that shits and giggles parlay together to Hail Mary. There you go, people. Here's what you got. Plus, forget it. You probably already lost anyway. But it should be interesting, though. Tonight, Wake UVA over 68.5. That'll determine what the rest of the week going to look like for that card. Either way, guys, we appreciate the time, appreciate the effort. Hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner. We'll be back again on Tuesday, starting up another week, week 5. In college football. And until then, on behalf of Tony Mejia, Rob Veno, and Dave Cokin, guys, best of luck with your plays here tonight and all weekend long. Come back and join us on Tuesday. Best of luck. We'll talk to you then.
Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of better. From as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.